had a decade worth of changes in shopping habits in a year.
Never knowingly undersold? Are you still shopping with John Lewis? Let me know. Email youandyours@bbc.co.uk. On Twitter, use the hashtag youandyours, or text us on 84844. Animal charities have told you and yours that they're concerned about the welfare of kittens being sold online. Pet sales have increased during the pandemic, and Cats Protection, the UK's largest cat charity, says it's led to more people breeding the animals and selling them for big profits. The average price of a cat increased by 40% last year to nearly £330 according to the charity. And online adverts we've seen auction prices ranging from £450 to £800 for moddies, and as much as £2,500 for a cat. Cats sold by untrustworthy breeders are sometimes taken from their mothers too early and can be really sick. It happened to Emma Bradbury. She bought a kitten called Leo through prelove.com in June last year.
I had a look online, and there's a couple of quite well-known websites which seem to be the only places that sort of sell animals. So I paid £160 for him in the end, and the people were really friendly. They sent me picture updates of him, pictures of him eating, using the litter tray, things like that. So everything seemed okay, everything seemed normal.
Did you feel like you'd done all the research that you could do into the people that were selling this cat?
So they weren't breeders as such. I had pictures of their mum with the kittens as well. With COVID, I couldn't go and visit him before I actually picked him up. So actually the first time I saw him was when I already had him in the car with me. I put the cat carrier case out, put money in, they took the money, put the cat in, and then I picked the case.
That sounds a bit intimidating that you were just sort of asked to put the cash in the cat carrier and then this random exchange happened in the car park.
It just sounds like their house, but it did feel a bit strange. But it's difficult to distinguish between breeders, people that have their cats accidentally just got pregnant, which obviously happened a lot last year with vets not littering, and people that are just doing it for cash. And I think I realised after a short time that they were the sort of people who were just doing it for cash.
What made you think that? Is that because what happened?
It was what happened afterwards. So as soon as I picked him up, he's very small, but when I got him home, I weighed him, and he was around 450 grams, which is half what he should be for an 8-week-old kitten, and he just wasn't eating anything. And by the Tuesday, I was like, I need to take him to the vet just for my own peace of mind. And that's when they said he is about 5 weeks old. He doesn't got the teeth that he needs to have to be able to eat solid food. He's drinking little bits of water, and he just seemed to be getting a little bit more lethargic. So I might take him to a different vet and want a different opinion now. I'm not happy about this. That's when they said he's severely dehydrated by this point, hasn't been weaned properly. They had him overnight, hydrated him, then told us exactly what we needed to feed him. He was fine after that, and obviously, got bigger and bigger, and he's absolutely fine now.
When you realised what was the matter with Leo, and the vet had told you that he'd been taken away from his mum too soon, did you go back to the summer?
Yes, I did. So I messaged her quite angrily and said basically that I was really annoyed with what they'd done, I would be reporting it. And this is when she said to me that it's not actually her kitten. She was selling him for a friend, which had never been mentioned. Yes, I didn't really know where to go. Was it something you called the police about? Was it something I could report to the RSPCA? But I couldn't really find any details on the website. So I did report them through the website I bought him from, because I saw that she'd got other kittens on there for sale.
And did anything happen with that?
I feel like their response was as if I bought a t-shirt from somebody and I wasn't happy with it, and they were saying about, I could contact them for a refund and things. But obviously that wasn't what I was trying to achieve from it. I didn't want a refund, I wanted this to not happen to another kitten.
We asked the website prelove.com about their response to Emma Bradbury's complaint and what happened to that investigation. They say that they immediately blocked the seller from the listing site and then issued a permanent ban. Jackie Cuff is from Cats Protection and joins us now. Jackie, at the moment then, regulated in the UK like dog breeding. Why is that?
Well, traditionally, obviously, most dogs are sold pedigree. Most cats that are sold are mollies, and they're mostly home-based sales. People may be having accidental litters, but increasingly now this worrying thing, people selling for profit. And one of the things Cats Protection is calling for is that cat breeding is regulated, because so many kittens are now sold online, and without cat breeding being regulated, there are no welfare safeguards, because if you're regulated, then you need a license to breed cats, and we're really pleased that they're going to bring that in Scotland. So it's something we're hoping will apply to the whole of the UK.
The government has said that the UK has some of the highest animal welfare standards in the world, and under the Animal Welfare Act, commercial sellers need a licence. But you're saying that a lot of sellers are commercial, they're not breeding enough litters to make them commercial to then come under that licence.
No, this is a massive loophole, because people will claim that they're just selling as a hobby, it's not commercial. If they're selling as a business, then you need a licence. But a lot of these sellers, just as in the example of Emma, as you heard, will say, oh, it's an accidental litter, or oh, it's a one-off. And it's not a one-off. They're repeatedly putting adverts up, and they should have a pet friendly licence.
Tell us about Lucy's Law. That came in April, and it bans third-party sale of kittens and puppies in England. How has that helped?
So Lucy's Law was great intention, but people are getting round it. They're saying, just as with the Emma case, it turned out she was selling for a friend. You must buy the kitten from the breeder, and if you can't go there, as you can't with COVID, and get some videos, make sure you see the kitten with the mum cat, and just urge people to ask as many questions as possible. Cats Protection has something called a kitten checklist, which we've worked on with all the other charities. If you go to our website, you can go through this checklist, you can think of getting the kitten online, and it will tell you all the questions to ask, but the most important one is, did you breed those kittens? Can I see live videos of the kitten with the mum cat?
You talked about what people should ask the person that's selling the cat, but what could they look out for in adverts?
Yes, I mean, obviously it's not to say that the kitten's not available until 8 weeks. You should have a photo of the kitten with the mum. I mean, if it's a pedigree, you should be looking for registration with a breed association like the GCCF will tick that. Otherwise, it's not a pedigree without that certificate. Maybe mention of health records, vaccinations, has it been treated for fleas and worms? You know, we get so many poor kittens that are flea anemic, problems with their eyes, diarrhea. It is heartbreaking.
Should there be a particular price around pedigree, or can they go up and down depending on the availability of cats?
It is a market, it is availability. I mean, if people are prepared to pay, they're prepared to pay. I looked this morning, saw a pedigree. I'd normally expect a ragdoll to be about £1,000, a proper purebred one, and it was well over £2,500. People are hiking up the prices.
So the price isn't necessarily an indication of whether the breeder is trustworthy or not?
Oh, not at all. Quite the opposite, I'd say. Because if someone genuinely just wants to find a loving home and not make a profit, they're probably not going to charge an extortionate price for. You know, I saw a ginger kitten this morning for £450. Well, to adopt a kitten from a charity with the vet checks and to know that you're getting something healthy would be under £100.
That was Jackie Cuff from Cats Protection. Now, it's been a pretty rubbish year, hasn't it? But to see ourselves through, we've been spending money on treats. Things like smelly luxury candles or scent diffusers and room sprays. According to retail analyst NPD Group, home fragrance has boomed during the pandemic. Social media influencers promoting it has also helped with sales. June Jensen is from NPD Group. She's head of their beauty department.
It's super interesting to see how the homestead market has really evolved over the epidemic, and we've seen an increase of purchases of about 64%, which means that consumers love to indulge themselves at home because, of course, with the lockdown we have no choice than being at home, so we see this linking with people's need of creating a new environment at home. This, trying to say thing, is called the Hula collection, and it's the prestige of these smells. Very masculine, very fresh. In addition to this, another interesting point is that consumers are not frightened to actually spend that extra money on it. So we see there's been a real surge in consumer paying around £60 per item for a premium candle, which is, in comparison, is the average price that's being spent on a candle is around £30. So it's just showcasing that consumers are investing more in what they do have at home. I strongly believe that this trend will continue.
And then finally, tea. 3 of their fragrances I am hooked on. The first one is this, Violet. This smells, it is floral, but it's not like a bouquet of flowers. It smells like, you know those sweet Parma violets? It smells like that.
That was June Jensen from MPD Group and some beauty YouTubers. Well, Roger Dove is with us now. He's a master perfumer and owns his own luxury fragrance brand. Roger, thanks for coming on You and Yours. What do you think then is behind this growth in room scents, smelly candles, fancy diffusers?
I think because, as you said at the beginning, to paraphrase what you said, it's been a pretty rubbish, and I think that people just want escapism. And one of the beauties of scent, all of its forms, is it transforms how we feel about things. So I think home has become such an important thing because it's been enforced on us, and so anything we can do to make our home more comfortable. I'm sure that there have most likely been great uplifts in decorating and soft furnishings and so on too. But a candle is put inside your home, and within a very short period of time you can totally change the atmosphere.
But not just the smell, is it, with a candle? It's also the lighting.
Yeah, I think the thing here is if you think where scent is processed in our brain, it's the same part as we process all of our emotions. So our response to scent is such an emotional thing, and I'm sure that anything that makes us feel better, happy, makes us feel uplifted, is a godsend.
What about some of these scents then? I'm not sure I fancy my house smelling like a tube of sweets.
But that's the great beauty of choices. That I think that the thing with the candle market or home scent market is that, as your previous speaker said, it is booming. There's such an enormous amount of choice for every taste and every pocket. And so it's the thing of finding what works for you and creating the environment through smell which makes you feel happiest or best.
We heard that in that piece there that the average price is around £60 and the top end price is £60. Do you think people are repeat buyers? Do you think they'll buy a £60 candle or room centre and think, I must go and buy another one?
Yeah, I think it depends. And if you have the financial wherewithal to do it, and you like something, then without question, yes. Some people will buy something like that because it is just a treat and seen really as a precious treat. Some people will buy it because they just feel so fed up with everything that they want their world to be filled with a luxurious form of escapism. So I think it varies from person to person.
Once you have that smell, you get used to it, don't you?
Certainly. And sorry, if I might just say, not just you get used to it, but also I think one of the beautiful things about Scent for the Home is that we recognise people's homes through how they smell. One of the best things is if you go away from your family home, when you go back, there's something wildly comforting about the smell of home. So you're creating tomorrow's memories with it.
Is this a new trend called fragrance zoning in your home? What is that?
Well, yes. Okay, so I think fragrance zoning is a very simple thing to explain, that what you get up to and what you might want in your sitting room is most likely something very different to that which you might want in your bedroom, for example. So it's just it's this thing of matching odour with purpose. So if you want your sitting room or the main room you use to be wildly seductive, because that's what you're planning this evening, then you'd want to zone it, to use the phrase, with scents which make you feel that way. Whereas if you're having to work from home and it's yet another Zoom call or whatever it is you're having to do, and you're exhausted, then maybe you want something which is very energizing and that makes you feel uplifted.
Lavender's quite nice for the bedroom, isn't it?
Yeah, well, lavender, orange blossom, those types of scents are very, very calming. So they make you feel very, very relaxed. I think the great trick with the candle is not to leave them on for a long time. A lot of people, when you light them, it's really easy to forget that the scent is coming off the candle constantly when you're inside the room. So I think that the maximum, in my opinion, you should burn a candle for is about a couple of hours. An hour for most rooms is more than enough for a scented candle.
Lovely, fantastic tip. Thank you, Roger Dove, for coming on You and Yours today. The financial watchdog is clamping down on prepaid funeral plans. These are plans where you pay monthly instalments that should cover the cost of your funeral. But You and Yours listeners have contacted us saying that often that isn't the case. And we've also heard that people are persuaded into taking out plans by pushy salespeople. It happened to Alex Hughes' mum. She signed up for a 3-year prepaid deal costing more than £90 a month. There was also a £250 deposit. Alex Hughes has power of attorney for her mum, and she says that she saw the payments going out of her bank account and wondered what they were for.
My initial upset was that this £250 had been taken from her account with no explanation. They didn't seem to have checked on the suitability of the product. She signed over this with no terms and conditions, no written agreement, and obviously she couldn't remember anything about it either.
But then, once you contacted the company, they agreed to refund the £250, didn't they? So surely that was acceptable. They'd made a mistake and they paid the money back.
Yes, that was fine, and it would have been fine, and they promised not to contact her again. But then what really concerned me was that the next day she had another salesperson phoning her up, trying to change her mind about the decision to cancel. And we happened to have a recording of the call, which clearly used some really questionable techniques.
I believe a few days back the plan was cancelled.
To start with, he was saying he was asking for feedback about why she was cancelling.
Because I felt I had been persuaded into it at rather short notice, and I hadn't had time to consider the matter properly.
But then he immediately launched into quite a high-pressure sales pitch about trying to get her to take a different plan out.
I mean, is it something that you may consider? I mean, something, because it works out, the last one was like 36 months, and it works out to be like £90 something. This one worked out to be £61.11. You can do it on a longer term if you wanted to. You can do it over 10 years, which works out to be £24.75.
I doubt if I'll last 10 years because I'm 87 already. So,
About £11 a week.
yeah.
And the thing that really concerned me was that he was using current coronavirus as a reason for needing to take out a funeral plan when people are already very frightened and isolated at home.
You're going to go
Go right on the roundabout, 3rd exit.
and with coronavirus, funeral directors are whacking their prices up. Like literally every day their prices are going up. I mean, the average cost of a funeral at the moment is around about £5,000, and that's just a cremation.
Well, the Financial Conduct Authority now has new plans to regulate the sector, and it includes a ban on cold calling. Sheldon Mills is Executive Director of Consumers and Competition at the FCA.
Our aim is to make this market better so that people can actually get a guarantee of the funeral that they pay for. There are 2 or 3 problems in this market. One is the cold calling, so the behaviour that you see and that we've heard on this clip. It's not acceptable for people who are vulnerable, who are frightened and isolated at the time of coronavirus. It's not acceptable to have to pick up the phone and have somebody basically pushing a product on you. It might be a product that you want or need, but there are other ways to sell those products safely and effectively for people. So that's problem number 1. Number 2, is that the way in which these products are sometimes sold and the terms and conditions are not entirely clear. So some of these products are sold on a basis that you think you're going to have a guaranteed funeral of the type that you select, but actually, if you haven't paid enough money at the end of the day and you sadly pass away, your family then gets asked for extra money, and if they haven't got the money, yes, they might get a refund, but they'll be charged a cancellation fee.
And so how will it change? Because you're consulting on this at the moment, aren't you?
2 or 3 key elements. One is a ban on cold calling, which we're proposing. The second is a funeral plan provider should be saving itself sufficient money to guarantee payout of a funeral. So we want to ensure that these firms have the right backing, either through insurance or through the money that they have, to end up.
After 400 yards, cross the roundabout, third exit.
So when a loved one has died, they're having to top up that funeral despite the fact that they thought they paid for the full funeral.
Exactly. Or they can't get their money back and go and get a cheaper funeral without a cancellation.
Cross the roundabout, third exit.
Can these plans ever be value for money? I mean, do you think that the whole model is flawed, or can they sometimes work for people?
This is one of the points. I mean, these are commercial providers. If I take out on this plan and I die short of, paying more money, what happens then? I think we would expect, in one sense, that there should be some sort of guarantee as to the type of funeral that happens in that circumstance. Even on the clip there, the customer there who's being cold called, she says, I'm 78, I might not last a decade. And then he tried to push it to 5 years, etc. What she's saying is, can I pay enough money to actually have it paid out? Will I get a guarantee funeral? She will.
After 400 yards, cross the roundabout, second exit.
That's what these firms should set up to provide, and that's the sort of system of regulation that we will impose upon this industry and expect from them.
And if companies don't comply, will you shut them down?
So there's 2 things which will happen. One is they need to get through our gateway. They need to get authorised. For those funeral plan providers who are listening, you need to get ready for entry into this system. The second is, if they get through the gateway and they're authorised, then they will be supervised. And if they do not comply, then we have a range of tools and actions to take in order to ensure that they do. I mean, I don't like to work on that basis. What I want is to work with this industry to make it an effective market, to serve what seems to be a consumer need out there.
That was Sheldon Mills from the Financial Conduct Authority. Disabled people who live in high-rise flats covered in flammable materials say they're being forgotten in the cladding scandal. Disabled leaseholders have set up a new campaign group and they're demanding a meeting with the minister to discuss how they're being affected. There are also claims that recommendations from the Grenfell Tower fire inquiry about how disabled people should escape from high-rise buildings if they're on fire are being watered down. Our Disability Affairs reporter Carolyn Atkinson has more on this. Carolyn.
Well, 72 people died in the Grenfell Tower fire in 2017, and some, like Sakina Afra-Sahabi, were disabled. Her son Shahrokh spoke about his mum on the BBC's Grenfell Tower Inquiry podcast, and her daughter Nazanin appeared at the inquiry.
She was rehoused in 2016 into flat 151 on the 18th floor of Grenfell Tower. By this point, my mum was partially sighted and could only get around with aid of a tri-walker.
On that night, when a neighbor knocked on her door, telling her that she has to evacuate, she has to leave, she pointed at her knees and tried to tell her that she can't move. She physically could not manage the staircases down.
Shahrokh and Nazanin, whose mother died in the Grenfell Tower tragedy.
Carolyn, there are campaign groups that are quite vocal, aren't they, on this? So why do disabled residents feel that they need a specific one?
Well, take Sarah Rennie, who's a wheelchair user. She lives on the 13th floor of a block of flats in Birmingham covered in flammable cladding. She thinks there's a very big need, so she's recently started this disability action group called CLADAG, which she says is because disabled people face extra financial and safety concerns in the battle to make their homes safe.
I think that all leaseholders are in a terrible position through no fault of their own. We're all in the same boat financially. But disabled leaseholders are being left out from having evacuation plans. So we are not only financially trapped, but we are physically trapped. Our buildings are under close scrutiny at the moment, and we understand that really at any point, we've seen this in Sheffield and other buildings where the fire service has essentially closed a building down because it's deemed so unsafe. But if you've got access needs and it's the middle of the night, if you need a specialist pressure sore mattress, a hoist, where do you go in the middle of the night? I can't sleep on a friend's sofa. The fact that we have no plan and nobody's talking about what would happen is a real worry, and it's just being